Hello, Luke. Did you know that Christopher Nolan is making a new movie?
Yes.
Yeah, Christopher Nolan's next movie, unveiled as a Greek epic adaptation, already has a release date, according to The Independent, and that release date is July 17th, 2026. Of course, considering it's an adaptation of the Odyssey, I think we'd have to be waiting 10 years for it.
That's good.
Hello and welcome to Select and Reflect, the movie review podcast where we look at films that have come out in the near and distant past, we give them a couple of watches and evaluate them beyond first impressions. I'm your host Michael, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Luke, and this week we are celebrating the 50-year anniversary of The Godfather Part 2 by looking at The Godfather Part 2. Did this also win Best Picture? Because I know we often like to... yes, it did win Best Picture, and I know obviously we also, towards the end of the year, as we approach the Oscar seasons for next year, we like to look at films of the past that have been Best Picture winners.
Yes, and of course, this review will release in 2025. Can you believe it? So
Crazy.
it won't be the 50th anniversary of The Godfather Part 2 in 2025.
Oh, yeah.
But of course, it did win its Oscar for Best Picture in 1975. So that's 50 years ago. So The Godfather Part 2 is a 1974 American epic crime film produced and directed by Francis Ford Coppola. This guy, Francis Ford Coppola, he'll never stop making good movies.
I get it, because he made a bad movie.
Big, epic movies, which say a lot about society, that cost a lot of money for the time, of course. That stars some of the, the most famous actors at the time. That'll never stop happening. Of course, it is a sequel to which movie, Michael?
The Godfather Part 1.
Yes, Part 1. That's what it's called. Yes.
They were confident.
Yes. It was also written, of course, by Mario Puzo as well.
Yes.
And it's based on The Godfather by Mario Puzo as well. Although, this was a new script, I believe.
Okay. I just assumed the book was really long.
No, yes. It is, of course, both a sequel and a prequel to the 1972 film.
It is.
Yes.
And a squeakquel.
Yes, it stars Al Pacino. What's my name? Al Pacino. Yeah. Honestly, that was in my head while watching it, because it's just like the heights he reached in this movie compared to the lows that he sunk to.
In The Godfather Part 3, of course.
Yes. It also stars Robert Duvall, Diane Keaton, Robert De Niro, Talia Shire, Morgana King, John Cazale, and Lee Strasberg. It was released on December the 20th in the United States in 1974. So we're pretty close to its 50th anniversary. Right before Christmas. A lot of events in the movie actually take place around New Year's, don't they? In Cuba. So it's a good time to review this movie.
Yeah.
And Michael, can you tell me what the two languages are in this movie?
English. And is it Italian, or do they specify Sicilian?
It is Sicilian, yes.
Okay.
Yes. Can you tell me what the budget was for The Godfather Part 2?
No. Well, you said that they get anomalously high budgets. I don't know what was normal for 1974. That's my issue. I'm going to go for...
Well, I think the first movie had a budget of around 7 million.
Okay. In that case, I'm going to say 15 million.
Okay, that's a good guess, because the correct answer is 13.
Lovely.
So, well done. But give yourself a pat on the back. Will you be giving yourself a pat on the back for the box office guess?
No, I won't. Am I allowed to hear what the first one made for this one?
I mean, I can tell you, but I don't think it'll help, honestly.
Okay. Well, I was going to guess 80 million.
Okay. Why were you going to guess that low?
I don't know. I mean, I didn't really know exactly how low that was in the grand scheme of things, with it being 1974. Is that lower than the first one?
Yeah, so the first one made about $250 million.
Oh, okay. If I'd actually... So that would have helped a bit.
No, it wouldn't have helped.
Well, no, because...
Well, you don't know the right answer.
Yeah, but I wouldn't have gone for... If I knew the first one went for 250 million, I wouldn't have gone for 80 million. But I guess maybe you're implying it is kind of low. So maybe
when
I'm
I
right.
said, why did you guess so low? That was in the context of the first one being, the highest grossing movie of all time when it came out. This one only grossed 93 million.
That's very interesting.
Yes, that is very interesting indeed. And I think maybe the reason why you had such a massive drop off is because the first movie was actually, as I mentioned before, it was based on a book. This one wasn't based on the book, and that book was a best-selling novel. This one was not based on a best-selling novel, and it was rare back in the day to have sequels.
Yes,
like sequels were quite rare back in the day. So people saw The Godfather Part 2, and they'd be like, "Well, this isn't based on a novel, and it's Part 2." What do you mean Part 2? There isn't a Part 2. I'm not going to go see it. So yeah, it's interesting. To be honest, why there was such a massive decline for a movie which you'd assume it'd be the opposite, which is why I didn't tell you the box office for the first one because I didn't want to throw you off.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, you did help me out there.
You're welcome.
Yeah, but in some ways you could say, I know this is a controversial take, but you could say that franchise movies are too popular now. So on balance, I think actually it was probably a win for society back then that they didn't go in for this type of crap sequel making.
You say that, but have you seen the new Mufasa movie? It's getting less than half of what the 2019 Lion King rates in at the box office.
Yeah, I felt like that movie was coming for a long time, and I didn't actually realize it had come out. Like I knew that they were making a Mufasa movie. I was like, okay, that's interesting. But yeah, now it's actually here, and I didn't know about it.
The first movie made $1.5 billion.
Yes.
And I would be surprised if the new Mufasa movie even made $500 million.
Yeah, which is nothing.
No, it's really a massive decline. Anyway, Michael, let's get back on to The Godfather Part 2, which, it's similar themes, isn't it, to... Or maybe not in that movie, but, Fredo tries to kill Michael, so, you got that comparison. Anyway, tell me, did you like The Godfather Part 2?
Well, I thought Part 2, what the hell's that? So I didn't actually watch it. No. Obviously I like this movie. I suppose I'll say I don't think that I prefer it to the first one.
So I was going to ask you about that later.
Okay, that's interesting.
It's I guess, because obviously, the first one is iconic, and that's what people say when they're thinking about The Godfather Part 2. How good is it compared to Part 1? It's always going to be compared to Part 1, and you literally did that right off the bat.
Yeah, well done me. I mean, obviously this movie does a perfectly good job at expanding on, the character and the plot and all that. To put my cards on the table appropriately for a movie where some of it's set... Well, it's not really set in Vegas, is it? It's set in Nevada, largely. But did they ever even go to Vegas?
So it's set in Lake
Tahoe? Yeah,
Lake Tahoe, which is on the west coast of the state. It's like Lake Tahoe borders California.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, so with that said, putting my cards on the table... obviously, the first movie is about this guy who starts off kind of like a good guy, and then he becomes evil, and it's like a fall from grace, and blah blah blah. In this movie, sure, he falls further, but it's kind of in my head. I'm like, there's obviously interesting stuff going on. Like I say, I like the movie, but I'm a bit like, how much really does this movie add that needs to be, or is that makes it so? Yeah, it just adds so much more to the previous movie. That's where I'm like, I don't really prefer it. But yeah, obviously I like it. I think it would be kind of crazy to say that you didn't like it. But yeah, definitely like it.
Yeah, so I'll answer the question first. Did I like this movie? And the answer is yes, I did. I mean, it's incredible. What a great movie it is. It's 3 hours and 20 minutes long, which is... It's
too short. You wish it was longer because you like it so much.
It's very long, honestly, and I'm fine with long movies, but it's very long. And
am I crazy? In my head, I feel like the first movie was longer, but maybe I'm just retarded.
I swear the first movie wasn't as long. You know what? I'm gonna check because
Godfather Part 1. Oh no, it was less than 3 hours. Never mind that.
Yeah. I thought it was less.
That's
than
me told.
Yeah, it was like half an hour less.
No, it was 2 hours 55. Oh, yeah, sorry. So half an hour less. Sorry, yeah. I thought you meant it was half an hour less than 3 hours.
No, yeah, it was half an hour less than The Godfather Part 2, and I feel like that's fine. Once you get into the 3 hour mark, every minute over 3 hours, it's it becomes even longer. It's weird because it's not based on a novel. Of course, the guy who wrote it, Mario Puzo, wrote the novel for the first. But yeah, it just does feel like a novel with all these characters, and
yeah, I almost felt like I was watching a TV show.
Yeah, it was kind of like that. Yeah, and it takes its time, and there's a lot of nice things. Or when I say nice things, a lot of things you can appreciate And yeah, I do like it, but yeah, just I started complaining about the length. I don't want to make it seem like I was hating this movie, but yeah, it's just a bit long. But yeah, overall, I do feel like it is a very solid movie. It's very good, and what it's trying to say, what it's trying to do, it's very effective in what it is trying to say and what it is trying to do. The issue I think overall is, and this is when I'm going to bring it up, or what you brought up before. How does it compare to the first movie? The first movie is better than this, and I think that is, always going to be an issue with watching The Godfather Part 2, because people say it is a really good movie, and it's the best trilogy of all time, of course.
Yes, famously.
Yes, and I agree, but it's like it's not quite The Godfather Part 1. What Part 1 is looking at is, of course, Michael's rise to power, and he takes this character arc where he goes from, and again, I think I complained in the review we did of The Godfather, that his character arc wasn't as good as it could have been, but it's still interesting to see him go from where he is at the start of the movie to becoming, the new Don of the Corleone crime family, when nobody would have suspected that. In Part 2, he just kind of loses his family, and he becomes very lonely. And it's about the downfall, the personal downfall of Michael Corleone, and that is good to watch. It's a really good piece of movie making. It's just not as interesting as Part 1, and it's kind of it's also, I think, less enjoyable just because it's more depressing. It's a more cynical movie. It's more even at like the first movie, of course, you had Michael ordering the murders of like,
at least they were bad guys because they killed his dad.
Yes, but and of course Sonny dies in a quite horrific way, but still this one is more depressing because it's it's also a prequel, of course, which we'll talk about the structure in a bit, and I like that, and I really did like that element. I'm very glad they kept that in because that made it more enjoyable to me, the flashbacks to Vito's early life. But of course, the majority of the movie is about Michael and just his personal downfall, pushing everyone away from him and just ending up at the end of the movie in a very lonely place. And it's good, like it's good movie making, but it's just not as interesting and enjoyable as Part 1 for a few reasons. So again, like, I don't want to criticize the movie, but you have to, of course, compare it to the first Godfather, which, of course, you did straight away.
Sure did.
So
so I've proved your point that one has to do it.
Yes. So let's get into. Well, do you have any nitpicks?
Oh, I actually have one nitpick.
Okay, go on then.
So this is probably a bit of a tame one, but when Vito goes to like deal with that landlord who's been mean to his tenant, he just happens to be complaining about a tenant. I don't know if it's specifically them, which would make this even more the case, but just happens to be talking about them when he like goes to see him at the barber's. I just thought it was kind of funny.
Well, to be fair, like that's newsworthy. That's what's happening in his life recently.
Yeah, I suppose you're right. I guess it is the big thing. I guess that's what barbers like to talk about.
Yeah.
But I just thought it was like funny because like. I mean, maybe it is, and that's how landlords are. I mean, landlords obviously have a lot of responsibility. They do a lot of hard work and kind of contribute to society. So it makes sense. They've kind of got to talk through a lot of that stuff. Yes. So I guess that does make sense.
Yes. Okay.
And he even lowered that woman's rent just out of the goodness of his heart.
I know. That's a very good scene, by the way. It's because I don't know if you know his assistant. I don't know who Vito's assistant was, what the character's name is, but he puts a nail in the door, so the guy can't leave. Yeah, so it scares him because he can't.
Yeah, got to intimidate them.
Yeah. Again, just there's loads of little subtle touches like that. And I don't know, when we reviewed The Godfather, I keep wanting to say The Godfather Part 1, but it just
I think that makes sense because obviously if you just say The Godfather, like this film retroactively made there be a part, because this film's called Part 2, you've got to call that one Part 1 in retrospect.
Yeah, so the first Godfather. When we did the review for that, of course, I played that Family Guy clip.
Yes, I did not care for The Godfather.
Yes, and I remember there's a line in that Family Guy clip where Lois says, "Well, it's about subtlety or something." What is it? It's the art of subtlety or something like that.
Yeah. Well, because I think that basically he says that he can't understand the language they're speaking. He's like, speaking that language, and she's like, the language they're speaking is the language of subtlety.
And Chris goes, "That's because they're speaking Italian." Like,
yeah.
Yeah. But it is the language of subtlety. And I feel, again, I didn't rewatch the first Godfather in preparation for this, because that would just be too long. I don't know if you did. Because
I was actually I was thinking, man, I probably should. I think at some point, the thing is, I marathoned them ages ago, but I feel like I probably need to do it again. I mean, we say marathon, just a marathon of 2 films. I don't have to worry about the third one, but still, it feels like a marathon.
Now, the first time I watched the Godfathers, the first 2, I haven't seen the third. I know, shocking.
I have actually seen the third. I don't remember how bad it was, but I also don't feel the need to remind myself.
Yes, no, I have no interest in seeing that. But yeah, so I watched the first 2 like 10 years ago, and I remember like, okay, I've got to watch these movies because, you know, it's the greatest movies, or they are some of the greatest movies of all time, apparently. Again, I don't think either of them are, but the first one is better, certainly. And I just remember after, like, I think I watched it, maybe it was back to back, I was just drained. I was like, Jesus. Yeah,
I felt like I didn't like them. That's why I'm like, I've got to watch them again at some point, because I feel like the first time I watched them, it felt a bit like an obligation.
Yeah. So again, I didn't remember the first one that well, because it was like 2 years ago. But I think in this one, I mean, maybe I'm just being stupid, but it does seem in this movie there is a lot of subtlety. There's a lot of things which, you know, you have to really pick up on and notice, which I don't think you will have done, because you do lack those skills sometimes, you know, the ability to do that.
I was looking at my mobile phone the whole time.
Yes, my mobile phone.
Yeah, why couldn't Netflix have been in charge of this movie?
Yes, it is. It is the language of subtlety. That sums it up so well, honestly.
Yeah, good job, Lois.
Yeah, it is. Lois knows what she's talking about.
She's a cinephile.
Yes, so let us get into the plot of The Godfather Part 2. So, if you will, Michael.
The film presents parallel dramas. One picks up the 1958 story of Michael Corleone, the new don of the Corleone family, protecting the family business in the aftermath of an attempt on his life. The other covers the journey of his father, Vito Corleone, from his Sicilian childhood to the founding of his family enterprise in New York.
In New York City, yes.
The city's so nice, they named it twice.
Did they?
Because it's New York, New York.
Well, that's the state, though.
Yeah, well, it's like Green Bay, Milwaukee. The city's so whatever. Green Bay's in Milwaukee, isn't it?
No.
Oh, sorry, that's fucking Green Bay, Wisconsin. Oh God, I was trying to think of a city and a place, and I just panicked. I'm sorry. Anyway, what do you? Look. We've kind of already, like you already said, you like the way that they did this whole like two stories at once. That it's a
yes, let's talk about that,
and a sequel at the same time. I did like that. The one thing that I suppose I'll say now, lest I forget to mention it later, is I was thinking like, what in the way is there of like clever parallels between two? Is this like poetry? Does it rhyme? Because I was thinking like, obviously, like, you know, it's about like they're both mobsters, but it's kind of a bit, because I was like thinking to myself, I was like, this is kind of weird in a way, because obviously it's about Vito like starting his crime enterprise, but then the previous film was about Michael starting his crime enterprise. So it's almost like this film is, so it's almost like you'd feel like the plot of Vito starting his enterprise would pair better. But I was like, maybe like the one thing I was thinking is it's like there's kind of like a mirror thing where obviously the first one you see Vito kind of at his low point, which is to say dying, and Michael rising as a crime boss. In this movie you see Vito rising as a crime boss and Michael kind of, you know, not dying but facing his down point. So I was like, that's a thing. But apart from that, I was a bit like, I was actively looking, even though, like you say, I try to avoid finding out too many of the subtle, intricate details of these films. But I was like looking out, like, is there anything like really clever going on with the way these two stories are interacting? And I was like, there's not that much. I don't know if you disagree.
I do disagree.
How fervently do you disagree?
Fervently, no.
Okay.
I think there are some points in the movie, like the transitions between Michael's life and Vito's life, where you can clearly see what Francis Ford Coppola is trying to say.
The intentionality.
And I think there is a clear difference between Vito and Michael. And you can see with what Vito's doing, compare it to what Michael's doing. And it's all about family, really. You know, one values family and one really doesn't. And you can see the difference between the two. And, you know, we'll get into it. You know, the transitions, I think, are quite obvious. And that's the thing. What Wikipedia says, I think, is inaccurate, because it says the film presents parallel drama. which implies, the drama that is happening is kind of the same. It's just in two different, time periods. One with Vito and one with Michael. I don't think it's parallel. I think what you said before, it's like a mirror, but it's like a. I guess this is what mirrors are. It's like a flipped version. What Michael is doing, Vito is kind of doing the opposite, and it explains why Vito ended up in the position that he did. Because when he died, he was surrounded by family. He lived kind of a good life for a Don, and with Michael, he of course is very lonely. And you can, even for instance, when what's the first scene of The Godfather? What is Vito doing?
He's at the wedding.
Yes, and he's answering requests, isn't he?
Yes, yeah. He's helping out his family because he's a family guy.
Yes.
Even though the actual family guy hated The Godfather.
Michael, you just can't imagine Michael doing something like that. Like he's just too cold and calculating. Like he wouldn't just have that, ability to. And indeed in the movie,
he wouldn't chase his son around or his grandson around with an orange wedge in his mouth.
No, he wouldn't do that. No.
Could you imagine? Could you imagine a Michael in this movie like just like this random aside where he's like, let me just put this orange peel in my mouth.
Yes. Well, he doesn't play with his kids at all, does he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He doesn't know. It's sad.
He doesn't. So yeah, you can see the difference there, and we'll get into more of the differences. But yeah, it's just I think there's a contrast between Michael and Vito, which is highlighted, and I think Michael's downfall is, again, he doesn't lose his power, but the only thing he cares about is power, and I guess this is what we'll say further on in the review, but I'll just say it now.
No one man should have all that power.
Yeah, that is true. Shout out Kanye. I wish Kanye. I know Kanye would have liked to have done to Hyman Roth what Michael did. But yeah, so basically, the key difference between Michael and Vito is Michael, he wants power over everything, and that is his motivation, and he loses his family because of the pursuit of power. Whereas for Vito, I think it's kind of the opposite. He does want power, but that's to help his family. And he wants power because he cares about his family. That's why he's after power. Whereas for Michael, it's like...
He wants power for power's sake.
Yeah, for its own ends, and that is a bad path to go down.
He's like Sauron.
Yes. Yeah, so let us now get into... and again, that's what we're talking about just then. That's great. That's really well thought out, I think. It's really nicely done. So we've got to give the movie props for that. Again, it's a really good movie, this movie. It's just, again, not quite as good as the first one. But, it's still quite enjoyable because of these themes. Again, it's just a very well-made movie. So let us talk about how this movie, of course, was started with Mario Puzo coming back.
Yes, so Mario Puzo started writing a script for a sequel in 1971 before The Godfather was even released. Its initial title was The Death of Michael Corleone. Francis Ford Coppola's idea for the sequel would be to juxtapose the ascension of the family under Vito Corleone with the decline of the family under his son Michael. That's exactly what I said. I would like it on the record. I didn't know he said that. We're just, it's just he communicated that very well. So well done me for picking up on it.
Good filmmaking and a good theme. Yeah.
He did such good filmmaking that I stole his analysis. This is a quote from him. I had always wanted to write a screenplay that told the story of a father and a son at the same age. They were both in their 30s, and I would integrate the two stories in order not to merely make Godfather over again. I gave Godfather 2 this double structure by extending the story in both the past and in the present, except he said that in his thick Italian accent.
Yeah, by the way, not merely make Godfather 1 over again.
Oh, yeah, you know what? Okay, okay, that makes sense.
That's a 1, not an I. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought you made an error.
No, I don't make errors. I do. But yeah, so again, the structure is nice because of the reasons we've laid out, of course, just before. And yeah, it's just, let's just talk about the concept, on its own terms. It's kind of, a really nice concept. And if you can execute it well, which he does, then you can make a really good movie. And it is a prequel and a sequel at the same time. I was thinking, can you think of another sequel or another movie that has come after the first movie that does something like this? Because I feel like sometimes with sequels, it can be, or even especially prequels, it's like, well, this is how Vito Corleone got his star. It wouldn't be as interesting, would it, if it was just a prequel? I think that's especially the case for prequels. But
Yeah, well, I've already mentioned Mufasa.
yes, but if you pair it with a sequel, then you can create some, nice contrasts, like we've talked about, and you can create some nice thematic differences between the two, or thematic. You can create some nice, themes and that show the differences between, one story and another story. And yeah, it can be more than just, this is how Vito Corleone became the best crime boss ever. It's more than just that. Which, if you were to do a prequel to this movie, that's what it would be. And again, you could still make it decent, a decent movie, but that's what it would feel like. And again, with a sequel, and sequels are less hacky than prequels a lot of the time. But with sequels, it's like, well, yeah, you could just say, this is what happens to Michael, which could be, interesting. But again, if you contrast that, it's with his father, then suddenly, yeah, it just gets that much more interesting. And yeah, I do really like that concept. Can you think of another movie that's done something like that?
Yeah, you know what? I decided to go for ChatGPT, best film critic. And you'll be surprised to hear that the answers it gives are terrible. So first of all, it says Godfather Part 2, even though I said other than Godfather Part 2, whatever.
Right.
Then it gives The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, where it just it literally says it's a prequel. Because The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is not two different narratives, so that's stupid. Then it says Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, which basically it's just saying there are flashbacks in it, but it's kind of, I feel like there's got to be more than just flashbacks.
Crucially, it's two different characters.
Yes,
Michael and Vito. It's not just flashbacks from when Michael was younger than he was in the first Godfather.
Yeah, and I'll just say the only other one mentioned was X-Men: Days of Future Past, which is
X-Men: Days of Future Past.
Well, obviously the thing that is because it's time travel, so it's you've got the events happening in the future with the apocalypse, but then you've also got the events happen. But then you could apply that to any time travel movie, couldn't you? In a way.
And I don't know if you recall that movie.
I vaguely recall it. I remember that the president is Peter Dinklage.
No, that's not true.
Oh well, he's not. Well, he's something, isn't he? Peter Dinklage is in that movie.
Yes, but he's not the president because the president is Richard Nixon.
Okay.
And Peter Dinklage does not play Richard Nixon. But yeah, of course, in that movie, Days of Future Past, the present day, you hardly see them. It's all set in the 1970s. So yeah, that's not the case either. But yeah, so it's just.
So yeah, basically, to answer your question, it would seem that the answer is no. No other movie has done this, even though you'd think it's like if I was a film guy and I watched The Godfather Part 2, at some point I think, hey, I should do a movie like this. It's surprising no one else has done it.
No one else has copied it, which, is kind of crazy.
Yeah, because you think, it does feel like it should be, and I think it's one of those things where you really could go even further. I wouldn't say that this film, as I kind of already hinted at, I wouldn't say it's a perfection of this format. I'm sure there could be a really there's Tenet by Christopher Nolan, which I still haven't bothered to try and understand, but or Memento also by Christopher Nolan. I guess what we're saying is Christopher Nolan should do this. Where you have these movies where it's everything's interconnected and it's things are folding on each other, and you feel like if they can have movies like that, you'd think you could do a really good movie with this kind of basic format or structure.
Maybe the fact that it's a prequel and a sequel would confuse audiences. I don't know, but also, there are people who were skeptical about this idea before it was released into the theaters. Do you know which director told Coppola it wouldn't work?
Scorsese.
No, I'm going to bring him up in a bit, but no, the other famous director from the 70s.
What's his name? Oh, crap.
I actually don't.
Brian De Palma.
No.
Oh, okay.
I thought you were going to say Spielberg, honestly, but no, it's not Spielberg either. It's the other one.
So it's not Brian De Palma. It's not Richard Attenborough. I just know he was a director in the 70s. When you say famous director, is he similarly kind of one of those Italian American guys?
He's not Italian American now.
Oh, okay, that really confuses things.
And I think he's had a bad track record with prequels, honestly.
Oh, George Lucas. Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So George Lucas said it wouldn't work.
Okay, yeah. He said, it's that's funny because I literally made a reference to the "it's like poetry, it rhymes" thing. About this, but yeah, he clearly didn't see the potential yet.
But that's the thing. What George Lucas does with it's poetry, it rhymes. Is he
just copies it?
He copies it. Well, I think Coppola is doing something different here. Where it's
ironically, even though he's called Coppola, he doesn't copy it.
Yeah, it doesn't rhyme. What Michael and Vito do, it doesn't rhyme. It's the opposite.
Yeah, it's like that newfangled modern poetry.
Yeah, again, yeah. So. It's funny to say George Lucas is this sequel prequel thing, it won't work. Let me show you how to really do prequels. In 30 years I will release a trilogy of prequels which will just blow you away. You mentioned Martin Scorsese as well.
Mm.
Coppola wanted Martin Scorsese to direct this movie. I don't know if you were aware of that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and he'd only done Mean Streets.
Yes.
He was not famous.
Starring Robert De Niro.
Because, of course, Taxi Driver came out in 75, I think. Actually,
Yes.
shit. If it came out in 75, we should be reviewing it next year. And I don't have it on our list. So
Let's see when it came out. Taxi Driver.
Was it 76? Please be 76.
I think it was 76.
Oh, thank
76, 76.
All right, thank God. Thank God. Right. So, yeah, that can be for 2026.
I want to watch some pimps get shot.
Yes. So this is before he made it big with Taxi Driver. But Coppola wanted him, but Paramount was like, no, this guy, who the fuck is this guy? Martin Scorsese, fuck off, we want you. And they were right to do so. No, I mean, I think this is a very good movie, and it's crazy though to see the contrast with what Martin Scorsese has put out recently with, of course, Killers of the Flower Moon, and Coppola's latest movie.
Yeah. I feel like if Scorsese hadn't done this, he wouldn't have made Goodfellas.
That is maybe not correct because he likes mob movies.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, in my head, I felt like at some point he'd reach mob movie saturation, but maybe I'm just stupid.
Well, of course, after Goodfellas, 5 years later, he did Casino.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Okay,
So,
never mind.
Yeah, and then he waited a while until The Irishman. I don't think he did another mob movie for 24 years. So yeah, maybe he got the hint after Casino.
He did Hugo.
Yeah, he did. Anyway, so shall we get into the script now, Michael?
Yes, let's get into that old script right there. So, in 1901, 9-year-old Vito Andolini emigrates from Corleone to New York City after mafia chieftain Don Ciccio...
What did you just call him?
What did I say?
You said mafia.
Oh, sorry, mafia. After mafia chieftain Don Ciccio kills his family. An immigration officer registers him as Vito Corleone, because he's from Corleone.
Yes.
So this is how it begins.
Yeah,
this is going to be. We think it's just going to be a regular prequel at this point.
Yeah, it's a great opening. I love the shots of the Statue of Liberty with him, Vito, looking out the window.
Land of opportunity.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. He's looking at it behind bars, isn't he? And I think that is the case. That is the case for a lot of immigrants who came to America seeking the American dream. Yeah,
they really just came here to commit crimes. I hear what you're saying.
Yes, well, that's what the first movie dealt with a lot. One of the major themes from the first movie, which again is kind of why I prefer it, is it kind of eviscerates the American dream. It's like this is the only way you can achieve the American dream, and also Goodfellas kind of does that as well. I don't know. Do you like that shot as well?
Yeah, I do. I think it's a perfectly good shot. Obviously this movie does have the it's anti-Italian discrimination line in it that the senator says, so it does kind of touch on that as well. This idea of these immigrants, God bless them, it's not their fault that they committed all these crimes. So I'm glad he reinforces that with that visual imagery.
Yeah. What happens in the present day?
So in 1958. Don Michael Corleone has several meetings at Lake Tahoe during the first communion of his son, Anthony. Senator Pat Geary demands a bribe to secure the casino license and insults Michael's Italian heritage. Yeah, so this is when we find out that there is actually anti-Italian discrimination. And some politicians are corrupt, but worse than that, they're racist.
Yes.
And greedy.
Yeah, so when I was watching this scene, I was like, okay, so this movie is kind of just retreading themes from the first movie with like, there's you can't really get to the American dream if you're Italian American, for instance. It's impossible, and America is corrupt, and Michael even says the line, they are both part of the same hypocrisy.
Yes.
Which of course turns out to be entirely accurate, which of course is the point of the first movie, really.
Yeah, good point, Michael.
Yes, Michael is right. As Michaels are often quite good with the points they make. Yeah,
I agree. Yeah, it's so cool that so many people are called Michael.
Is it cool?
Yeah, I like it. There was someone else recently called Michael, and it was in a romantic Christmas movie that I watched over the Christmas period, and the good guy, the romantic interest in it was called Michael.
What about Michael Jackson?
Okay, fine. There's some bad people called Michael, but if you almost feel like no one's called Luke. What, Luke Skywalker? That's it.
Yeah, that's one of the most famous characters in. I guess Michael Corleone is, but Luke Skywalker, I think, is more well known. It's like the most famous franchise ever, Star Wars, and the main character is called Luke. So there you go.
Well, okay. I think it would be better if your name was Frodo.
No. I don't think so. I disagree. But yeah, he's making the point, to succeed in America, you have to be corrupt, or the system is corrupt in general, and the only way you can achieve power and money and the dream.
First you get the money, then you get the power, then you get the women.
Yes, and of course power basically means corruption in American society, and of course this is what we talked about in the first movie a lot, and of course this movie then deviates from that, and this theme isn't brought up that much more throughout the part two. So yeah, and I like that. Otherwise, again, you're just retreading what went down in part one. Even if I do think that these themes are more interesting to me, at least. But yeah, the Italian insult again. It's I just find it very funny, honestly. At the same time, like these Italians, man. I mean, to be fair, did the Irish come over and start a mob? Start a mafia?
No, yeah. Did the Jews come over and start a mob? Did the Russians come over and start a mob?
The Jews kind of did.
Did the black people come over and start selling crack and running the projects?
Yeah, they should have never emigrated. I don't know who let them in, all those black people.
Did the Muslims come over and start flying planes into buildings? No.
Yeah. No, it was the fucking Italians.
Exactly.
So, yeah, but Sicily in particular, that's where they're all from.
Yeah, I think it's because that's just the poorest part. Isn't it weird that, like, Italy, it's like the opposite to trickle-down economics. It just gets poorer as you go down.
Yeah, well,
unlike American society.
Yeah, there was a good video recently released by a guy called Real Life Law on YouTube, which you probably
I know him.
Yeah. Talks about the divide between the north of Italy and the south, which I actually learned about in school back in the day as well.
Yeah, isn't the thing is, like, Real Life Law, who we're really reviewing, he gets clowned on a lot because a lot of the time he has those videos about, like, why X country is X% empty, and it's always like, well, because, countries often have population density varying. It would be weird if the entire country was equally dense all the way throughout, you stupid moron.
Yeah, well, to be fair, honestly, like, our country we live in is kind of like that. It's kind of like just dense wherever, although there are some pockets of, where isolation exists. But yeah, I think, for instance, the Spain one he did, it's like, why is Spain so, empty? Well, it's a very hot country, so a lot of people live on the coasts, so probably explains it.
It's probably it, yeah.
Probably
why is Mauritania so empty?
Yeah, that's a good point. But yeah, the Italy one is kind of interesting because
I can imagine it would be.
Because the contrast is massive.
This is why the guy, when my wife and I went to Verona and we were speaking to the taxi driver, this is why he was annoyed when I was asking him about the Sicilian mafia. He thought that was that actually Verona in northern Italy is quite different from Sicily.
Yeah, but yeah, so again, all these immigrants have come over here, in the past, of course, to New York, and they've been told, no, fuck you, you're not white, which back in the day was true. Thankfully nowadays that's not the case.
Yeah, nowadays they are white. Nowadays they're so white they're racist.
Yes, as we can see from Luigi Mangione.
Yes.
It's the reason why people like him so much is because he's white. If he wasn't, Italian Americans are white now. That's just how it is. Yeah.
If Christopher Columbus was around today, everyone would be like, you can go kill anyone you want. You can go enslave all the natives you like, you sexy beast.
Okay, right. So let us now get into the conspiracy, I guess.
Yeah. So Johnny Ola, representing Jewish mob boss Hyman Roth, promises a support in taking over a casino. That night, Michael narrowly escapes an assassination attempt, suspecting a traitor in the family. He leaves I can never pronounce Consigliere. I guess that's how you pronounce it.
Consigliere.
Consigliere. I don't know what even is like Tom Hagen's nationality. I don't know. Tom Hagen. Is he like actually Italian?
Well, no.
Yeah, he's just like a regular like American dude, right?
Yeah.
He's just a cowboy, Tom Hagen, in charge and goes into hiding. So this is like the big... I have a thing about this movie, which I'll say now. When you break it down, this movie actually has a pretty thin plot, because it's literally just two things. One, Michael Corleone's trying to work out who's tried to assassinate him. Two, everything that happens in Cuba. That's it. This movie has like two things that happen.
Yeah.
Which is like fine. That's not a criticism. In fact, I kind of like how streamlined it is.
Yeah,
I like the fact I've only got two things to focus on.
Yeah, and of course, the Vito storyline as well. Yeah, so yeah. But yeah, again, who was trying to kill Michael? That is the mystery of the movie. That's what, where everything in the movie, in terms of Michael's storyline, everything goes from. And yeah, of course, it leads to his downfall. I love in another scene, when he gets when he's angry. He's angry about being shot at, which is true, but you can tell he's really angry that they got to him in his own private compound.
Yeah, it bruised his ego.
Yeah. Like, it's not just they tried to kill me. It was like they tried to kill me in my fucking own
Where
bedroom.
my kids sleep?
Yeah, exactly. In his private compound. That's what really pissed him off the most. The fact that they do that and they almost got away with it. So again, I like that. Even when he's, he was almost assassinated, he cares again about his ego, about his power being undermined, basically. But yeah, it's again just Al Pacino was very good, which we'll get onto in a bit. But what happens? We go to Vito next, don't we?
Yeah. So by 1917, Vito is married in Little Italy and has an infant son, Sonny. Black Hand extortionist Don Fanucci preys on the neighborhood, costing Vito his grocery store job. He begins stealing for a living with his neighbor Peter Clemenza and has 2 more children. So yeah, he's just getting started. You see his what's the word? His humble beginnings.
Yeah, and again, he wasn't involved in crime, but he turns to crime because of corruption, because of this Don Fanucci, and again, it's even this guy who's doing everything right. He's a law-abiding citizen, which is the name of a better movie than this. He, again, okay, well, how am I going to make my way in the world? How am I going to provide for my family? I'm now unemployed. Well, yeah, you can't escape just the natural corruption in America.
Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in.
Yeah, you think about all those immigrants left Italy, and particularly Vito. They left, because of the mob. Literally, he was going to get killed. But yeah, it still, follows him to America. There is just no escape. Like the American dream. That was promised. It just doesn't exist for so many Italian Americans. Or so many immigrants in general. Of course, they can't escape the issues that caused them to move over to America in the first place, and that is the case with Vito. Of course, it's less dramatic. Like, he loses his job compared to him almost being killed. There's a contrast there, which is fine. But yeah, I do think there is the general point. It's like America is the land of opportunity. Well, there's still so many issues here, like in the old country. Yeah. Do you like? Okay. Do you remember the theater scene, by the way?
Oh yeah. They go to the theater.
Yeah.
And they're doing the Italian theater guy thing.
Yeah. And the guy is and the point I was making then with all these problems exist in Italy and now exist in America as well. This guy is in the play is complaining about life in America. Do you remember what he's complaining about specifically?
I do not remember what he was complaining about specifically.
Yeah, well, I don't either. But yeah, but you can see in the background what's happening backstage. With Don Fanucci, almost killing this girl. That is what's really that's what drives. That's what's happening in the background. Basically, that why
it's behind the scenes.
Exactly.
Literally.
Yeah, literally. Yes, exactly. That's the phrase I was looking for. Thank you for spelling that out. Yeah. So behind the scenes, this is what's going on.
Yes.
And
then the play is a performance. All the world's a stage.
Well, yeah, it's not necessarily it's a performance. That's what people see. These problems are obvious to everyone. But behind the scenes, this is what is causing some of the issues that Italian Americans have, and of course it's causing issues for Vito specifically. And it's what turns him to crime. That's the only way for him to succeed. But yeah, I will say the sets are great. I love Little Italy.
Yeah.
I think that those sets are great. I love that, honestly.
Yeah, I don't know. It probably won production design. Should have. So.
Well, I'll check. But go on.
Yeah. Although it was in the past, so it was about half as impressive for them to recreate the olden days as it would be now. Michael. Oh, because it was closer to it, so they didn't have to. So, not as much had changed. Easy.
It won Best Art Direction, which I'm not sure what
they might not have even had production design.
That is Best Production Design. Yes.
Lovely. Okay, well done. So, Michael separately tells Pentangeli and Rath, no, that wasn't right, but that he suspects the other of planning the hit, and arranges a peace meeting between Pentangeli and the Rosatos. At the meeting, the brothers attempt to strangle Pentangeli. A police officer drops in, forcing the brothers to flee. Later, Rath becomes angry when Michael asks who ordered the Rosatos to kill Pentangeli. I like this because I had a brief moment where I was confused, but then I realized it's okay that I'm confused because he's trying to confuse people. He's telling them contradictory things. And I was like, felt a sense of relief wash over me as I read. It wasn't that I was failing to follow the movie. It's that contradictory things were supposed to be happening. I also do like how everything just descends into complete chaos with the attempt to kill Pentangeli.
Yes. So I guess what happened with the assassination of Michael was that both Roth and Pentangeli were in on it. I assume Roth and Pentangeli were like, okay, well, Roth was like, okay, these Rosati brothers want your turf, but if you help me kill Michael, then guess what? You can have your turf, and because the Rosati brothers, are controlled by Roth.
Yes.
And of course, Roth wants to kill Michael. His motivation is, I think, because of Mo Green, I think that is the reason why. Yeah.
Mo Green, Mo problems.
Yeah, he goes on a rant about Mo Green dying, and it's clear, obviously Michael killed him in the last movie, and that pissed him off. Roth is like, okay, I'm gonna have Pentangeli kind of take the fall. However, the whole thing with the police officer is deliberately fucked up, and I think you can tell because the Rosati brothers who tried to kill. Well, I don't think they actually do try to kill Pentangeli, because what does one of the Rosati brothers say?
I don't remember. What did they say?
Well, when he's strangling Pentangeli.
I literally can't remember his words.
He says, "This is from Michael Corleone."
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, that makes sense, yes.
Yeah.
And obviously it's to make Pentangeli think, yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's to make Pentangeli think, oh shit, Michael Corleone, he's found out that I'm trying to kill him, and this is... But then it goes deliberately wrong. So
so that he obviously has the opportunity to, so Pentangeli's left with that suspicion.
Yeah, so Pentangeli, well, yeah, it's not suspicion, really.
It's confirmed suspicion.
Yes, okay, so he tried to kill me, and it went wrong, so I'm now I have to go into witness protection, and then I'm going to rat him out. I'm going to be the rat, which is of course what Roth wants, because he still wants to fuck over Michael. So
did you say that he wants him to feel his wrath?
Yes. So it's a very smart play from Roth, and I guess Michael is just trying to find he's just trying to find everything out, and and I think Roth again when he has that meeting with Roth down in Miami, and Roth's just like, it's probably this guy. It's probably Pentangeli. Maybe that's a clue as well. It's like, okay, he's
leading him that way.
Yeah, he wants Pentangeli to take the fall. So it's very interesting. And again, I had to look at Wikipedia for this and figure it out. And you were confused, and hopefully.
Yes, it now makes complete sense.
Yeah, and again, there's a lot of machinations going on, which again, the language of subtlety is used in this movie. You need to really get into the weeds to understand everything that's going on. But once you do, it becomes more satisfying, and it just is satisfying, honestly. So yeah, credit to the movie for that. And I don't know if you know this, well, you probably don't. It's based off real life. What happened to Pentangeli with him almost getting killed? And I guess in the movie, he deliberately does not get killed, so he will rat out Michael. That actually happened in real life with a couple of brothers tried to kill a guy, but failed because a policeman walked into the bar. So it's based off something that happened in real life. So that's interesting, isn't it?
That is interesting. Yeah.
Yes. Shall we talk about Al Pacino?
Yes. So Don Pacino, he's what they call in the business a good actor.
Yeah, his performance is just very good. Like, it's so intense, and it's also so depressing at the same time. Like, there's just hardly, there's just no love behind his eyes. There's no warmth. There's no comfort, and it's so good. And he's incredible. And he didn't win Best Actor, unfortunately. I don't know who did, but this guy Al Pacino, he can act. I don't know if anyone's ever said that before.
Yeah, I feel like maybe he was really mad about maybe there was a personal assistant or something who kept forgetting his coffee because he just did a really good job. So I think there must have been something going on that had him really ticked off the whole time.
Is that a reference to something?
No, I'm just saying it was just I was thinking of something that would be a reason why he was annoyed. So I was just imagining he's actually really annoyed for the entire for the whole shoot.
Not just he's acting well.
No, yeah, exactly. He wasn't acting well at all. He was just angry.
Yeah, he got paid $500,000 for this, by the way. He got paid
that actually makes the acting very impressive.
Yeah, he got paid 10 times the amount he did for the first movie, which is funny. I don't know if an actor has ever had such a big increase from one movie to the next. Yeah, but also let's talk about De Niro now, since we're on the actors.
Yes, he's also a good actor.
Yes, he actually won Best Supporting Actor. And it's just, incredible. Of course, he's proven himself to be one of the best actors of all time, as has Al Pacino. The stars kind of aligned, didn't they? You really did have the only three talented. I was going to say that, you had some of the most talented Italian Americans ever, and they all happened to just all be in this movie.
Yeah, they didn't have Joe Pesci though.
Yeah, well, yeah, again, like some of the most. Maybe the top three most talented Italian Americans of all time: Francis Ford Coppola, Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, and maybe you can put Scorsese in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they were all in this movie. It's just kind of crazy to think about, really. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it is fun that they all got together, which of course also did happen for The Irishman. You had like loads of people coming together.
Yes. Yes. And of course, Heat as well. Let's not forget about Heat.
Yeah, that had Hank Azaria in it.
Yeah. Anyway, what happens next?
Yeah. So Roth invites Michael to Havana to invest in his activities under the Batista government. Michael expresses concerns about the government's response to the Cuban Revolution. Hey, the Cuban Revolution, more like the Cuban Revolution. Thank you. This is fun. I like when something happens historical in a movie that sets the movie in a place and time, and I'm like, oh, I know about that.
Yes, and again, you can see why the Cuban Revolution was happening because these guys were running Cuba.
Yeah.
And so again, it's a repudiation of the capitalist system, I guess.
Yeah, they were mad at all the money that was trickling down to them.
Yes, and just the corruption that goes along with it. Again, this is what I was talking about before with the theme of the last movie. This is one of the only other times it crops up. Look at all these legitimate businesses in Cuba, and they are alongside Michael Corleone, just sitting at the same table. And that is the end point of this. Well, it's just
because didn't the mob killed JFK, right? Because of the fact that he let the Cuban Revolution happen and they were mad about it.
Yeah, that was one of the reasons. Yeah,
good.
Yeah, and you can see what we have here is an oligarchy.
Yes,
that is what this is. All these businessmen, basically, the president has to convince. I guess that is Batista, who shows them all the golden telephone. And it's like, yes, this is, you can be a part of this, and, we can all, you can all basically control Cuba. Again, but that is the end point of just like capitalism, I feel like. Again, like Roth is complaining about, in America, you got the DOJ, you got the FBI, there's some people that still try to fuck him over, etc., and, you still have these Senate hearings, even though Michael, of course, gets away with it. And eventually the mob did fall in America, but still, there's still so much corruption in America. But you get to, this is what the end point is for these people. It's like what was happening in Cuba before the revolution.
Yes.
Did you enjoy the scene with the cake?
Well, I'm really stupid. Wait, what was the scene with the cake?
See, you literally don't see. Okay, this was like the most literal metaphor in the entire movie, and it's quite clever. I like it, but you don't remember it, do you? This is what I was talking about.
Oh, is it like, so they were like having cake and it was everybody getting a piece of the cake?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. I don't really remember the scene specifically.
Well, what was on the cake?
Was it a Cuban flag?
No.
Was it money?
No.
Was it drugs?
So it was just Cuba, the country.
Oh, okay, yeah. So it was like a map of Cuba.
Yeah.
Okay, that would have been my third guess.
It was actually, I think, your fourth guess.
Okay.
But yeah, so again, it's such a literal, like, oh, look, here's again. It wasn't really a map of Cuba. It was just like the outline of it.
Yeah.
But
so everyone gets a piece of the cake.
Yeah, but everyone gets a piece of the cake. Everyone gets a piece of Cuba. Yeah.
That actually sounds like a pretty good deal.
Yeah, the revolution completely ruined Cuba. It was so great before the revolution.
Yeah. That's why Trump wins Florida now.
Yeah. Right.
Because Kamala Harris said that the Cuban Revolution was the best thing to have ever happened.
Yeah.
I can't believe she said that.
Okay, what happens next?
Yeah, so next, Michael and Johnny Ola attend a New Year's Eve party where Fredo, the chocolate frog, pretends not to know Johnny Ola, but later slips. Michael realizes that Fredo is a traitor. Yeah, so this is it. This is like, I guess, the main plot, really. Like, the big plot is that Fredo is a traitor.
Yeah, Fredo, by the way.
I like calling him Fredo.
So yeah, the thing, okay, so this is where I'm going to criticize the movie, honestly, because maybe everyone knows, like, this is the big thing that happens in the movie, so maybe you're just attuned to it. But it's fairly obvious that Fredo is the traitor, and it's not that big a reveal, because he's nervous, Fredo, when Michael brings up Johnny Ola's name. Then later on, Fredo says to Michael, I was so angry at you before, and which is just a very weird thing to say. and he's just almost been killed. It's like, okay. And then when he meets Ola, at the club. He's nervous. So honestly, like
it was very telegraphed.
Yeah, before the reveal, like you say, it's quite telegraphed, and you have to. It's fair to assume, I think, that Fredo is the traitor. So when Fredo slips up, I don't think it's that satisfying because it's already, as you said, telegraphed, kind of.
Yeah. I would tend to agree. Like I mean, obviously, I watched this movie having already remembered that's the thing that happened, but I would say even going into it very much blind, there's not that much excitement with a lot of the reveals in this plot.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think. I mean, obviously, it's building up to an emotionally climactic moment, but yeah, I don't think there's any sense of shock with it. I would absolutely agree with that.
Yeah, and we'll get to that moment. But yeah, I can understand Michael being shocked because you're like, you're like, my own brother. Would he actually do that to me? Despite him being nervous and weird and everything. But yeah, also I guess his character is dumb, despite what he says. Fredo is dumb, but he still slips up in such a stupid way. Even for him, it feels like it's too dumb. Like, oh yeah, Johnny Ola, this guy who I'm trying to make sure nobody knows I'm associated with. Oh yeah, I know about this place because of Johnny Ola. Great guy, I love him. Hung out with him many times.
Maybe he just wanted that smooch.
Me and him go way back. Me and Johnny Ola. Now
it's like I was talking to him when I betrayed you. Whoops.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Like what? Yeah. What was the one thing I was desperately trying not to do before?
This is the one thing we didn't want to happen.
Reveal my relationship with Johnny Ola. Yeah, it is like this is the one thing he didn't want to happen, and he just does it in such an obvious way, and it's not like even subtle. He just says, "Oh yeah, I know Johnny Ola. He's great." I just feel like it's too dumb even for Fredo. I don't like that. So I just think this part isn't as good as it could be.
I also think it's really lame that I know this happens later, but it's so lame that he's like annoyed about the fact that he was like passed over, because you've got to stop being retarded for like a second before you get like mad about the fact that your brother Michael was elevated above you.
Yeah, but that's his character though. He's resentful. I can understand that somewhat. I just can't he's just so dumb. I just think he's too dumb, and also he obviously Michael says Michael Roth, not Michael Roth. What's he called? Hyman.
Hyman Roth.
Hyman Roth is going to die. Well, of course we're getting to the iconic moment when Michael says to Fredo, "I know it. I know it was you."
Yeah, I also like the iconic moment where he says, when he's talking about the assassination, he says, looks like we're gonna have to pop this Hyman."
Okay, that's great. Well done. Yeah. I will say when Michael says to Fredo that I know it was you broke my heart. It's iconic, but is it iconic because of the movie? I don't know, but it's
iconic because of when he says it in the Dunkachino advert.
Oh god, yeah. I like how he gives him the kiss of death. That's nice. That's good. But it's just one of those moments in movie history which just has become so iconic. I don't know if I can appreciate it fully. Just because it's like, I know, there's nothing really that special about it. Yeah,
you know what? I'm just looking it up because I was interested in whether or not it's like an actual thing. And apparently it might not be an actual thing. Apparently it could just be made up. It says, it's unclear how much is based on fact and how much is on the imagination of authors. Interestingly, it doesn't really say like where it came from then. So it's not like it was invented by... Sorry,
what are you talking about?
The kiss of death, sorry. The bit where you kiss someone. I do think it's a good scene. I guess it's like because it's such a simple line. It's not like one of those fancy. It's like subtlety. We come back to it again. Well, other lines are like so make a big show of themselves.
We talked about Star Wars before. I feel like it's kind of the same thing with I am your father. That line. It's like if we were to review The Empire Strikes Back one day and we were to talk about that line.
Pray that day never comes.
Yeah, it'd be the same thing, really. It'd be like, oh yeah, that's that iconic line that everyone knows. I can't really feel anything from it because everyone knows it and everyone knows.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it is what it is.
You maniacs, you blew it up. I'm just saying other lines associated with twists.
Yeah, what happens after that?
Yeah, as you said, Michael's attempted assassination of Hyman Roth fails. Batista resigns and flees amid rebel advances, and Michael, Fredo, and Roth separately escape Cuba. So yeah, at least they got away.
Yes.
If only everyone could have got away from that terrifying Castro regime.
Yes. if only, yes. And yeah, I like how, like what you said before, history intertwines with the plot. It's a nice idea to insert these characters into that moment, create some good drama. I was just thinking actually, Roth. He's also aware that Fredo was bringing money into the country, that $2 million.
Oh yeah, there's that whole $2 million thing, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and how did he know that? Probably because he was told.
Because told by Fredo.
Yeah. So there's a lot of clues that again Fredo is the traitor, and but yeah, at least we get that great scene of Michael kissing him. It's great.
Pretty sexy,
yeah,
pretty erotic.
Yeah, it's great. So when they get back home, of course, Michael learns Kay had a miscarriage.
Yes.
Later on we learn it's not, but yeah. I think again this is a thematic point really.
Yeah, because there was a miscarriage of justice with the way the Batista regime was overthrown.
Yes, that's good. I like that. But yeah, this kid died because of this lifestyle, and again, like he was literally aborted. This kid. I should say this fetus, honestly. But yeah.
You what are you, a Nazi?
Yes. So this fetus was killed because of the lifestyle that Michael was engaging in, and again, this whole idea of business over family. Literally, one of his future family members, doesn't exist anymore because of him prioritizing business. Because he wasn't there when his wife had a miscarriage, and it wasn't a miscarriage, of course, but obviously his wife wanted an abortion.
He wasn't there to slap her around enough.
Yes, his wife wanted an abortion because of what Michael turned into. It's literally the business turned Michael into someone so I guess evil. I guess that's a simplistic term, but so evil in some ways that
so warped.
Yes, so warped. That's a good phrase. Word. That literally he is. His family is suffering, and he is suffering as well. And I think you can see the contrast with Vito. Vito is motivated to keep stealing, because of his young family. You have that scene where Fredo is. What does Fredo have? Pneumonia, I think.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And you can see the what Vito is doing is different to what Michael is doing.
Because he's actually there as his baby's suffering.
Yeah.
Or dying.
Yes, exactly. That is a good point, which I didn't say, but that is a good point. Yeah, you can see the difference there. Yeah, and he's like, okay, I have to go into this business of eventually being in the mafia because of my family. To help my family rather than the business just superseding the family like it is with Michael. And you can see that with him losing his fetus. So we go back to Vito now. Don't we?
Speaking of Vito, so Vito sells stolen dresses door to door. Fanucci demands payoffs of $200. Wow. From Vito and his partners. Vito doubts Fanucci's muscle and decides to offer less. He meets Fanucci and offers $100, which Fanucci grudgingly accepts. Emboldened, Vito kills Fanucci. Yeah, so I like this bit. It wasn't immediately obvious to me, and I found out from boning up online that it was because he accepted less money. Yes, that's why he realizes this guy ain't all that.
Yes, and that's interesting. But I want to know why he thought he could offer less money.
I think maybe he's just got a knack. Maybe it's just the art of the deal.
Well, why does he suspect that this guy has a lack of muscle or will just accept $100 and is weak? Is it because? And I had this idea. Fanucci, of course, jumps into the car with Vito. Remember that? Yeah.
Yeah, because he's on his little milk truck.
Yeah, and I'm like, maybe Vito's thinking, if this guy actually was powerful, he'd get one of his, soldiers to do it.
That's a good point.
Yeah, one of his. What are
hombres. Capos, enforcers.
Yeah, enforcers. Yeah, I think that's what they're called. Yeah, and so this guy's doing it. Okay, that says to me this guy isn't really all that. And I could just kill him. And maybe you could contrast that to, of course, Vito. Him growing up in Sicily and having this Don Cicci or whatever he's called.
Yes.
And him having a lot of muscle and his muscle doing the work for Don Cicci instead of Don Cicci literally doing it himself. And he's like, wait, I know how this shit works in Sicily. I experienced it firsthand. And this guy, he doesn't have people around him. He's just this, he's just this guy. He threatens people. But maybe I'm reading too much into it. That's the thing.
I think that's a very reasonable theory actually. That because he knows how it works. He knows how the game is played.
Yeah.
Yeah, why not?
But perhaps again, even though that could be the case, it would be good if the movie maybe stated that somewhat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because again, you can have subtlety, which is great, but again, we're really reading a lot into it.
Yeah, you have to you basically do have to look up that's why he kills him.
Yeah. Well, I think that is true. Yeah, you can make assumptions basically. I think you can, but again,
you can make an arse out of you and me.
The assumptions are logical. So that you could say, the movie's doing its job then, Yeah. But again, it'd be nice to have it somewhat confirmed, Maybe just a little clue that what we're thinking is accurate. But yeah, again, this is what I'm talking about, by the way, with the two storylines being interconnected in a decent way, more than I think you appreciate, because we have. So right, how does that scene end after?
I just remember him dying.
Yeah, well, and what does Vito do after that? He goes back to his
He
family.
goes back to his family.
Yes.
And he's like, hey, I did a good thing. Hey,
Yes.
everything's gonna be fine. Yeah, okay, I do remember.
Yes, and he's in his community as well, because it's like there's a parade going on or something, and and it's, he's got his wife and his kids next to him, and everybody's happy, and then we transition back to, again, quote unquote, the present day, obviously 1958.
Yes, where Fredo tells Michael that he didn't.
No. I'm trying to I'm trying to educate.
I thought you were building. It's okay. I thought you were setting me up.
I'm trying to show you how stupid, because this is such a great transition. And again, I noticed that. Again, you didn't want whatever, but it's to be expected. But Michael comes back to his house, right, on Lake Tahoe, and what does he find? He finds it. Of course, it's
it's empty and it's desolate and it's cold and it's snowy.
Yes, exactly. See, you understand like the art of movie making, Michael. You just explained it, but you can't. I
remember it was snowy.
Yeah, well, it's cold. It's snowy. Yeah, it's cold. Okay.
It's lifeless.
It's lifeless.
It lacks that vitality, or Vito, if you like.
Yeah, yes, like Vito is with his family and everybody's happy and they're close together, and he sees like his kids car, his toy, that he rides around in, which is just outside, and it's it's got a bunch of snow on it. He's not playing with it. And inside, of course, it's empty, and he wanders around for like 2 minutes and can't see anyone. And again, yeah, it's empty, it's lifeless, and then he eventually sees his wife, and he just doesn't want to speak to her. Again, the contrast to that and what Vito is doing is it's quite.
Would you say it's stark?
It is stark. It's quite a significant contrast. And again, his father Vito was doing things for his family. He kills the Don and he goes back to his family, and then this guy, he goes back to his family after doing some business, and it's just like there's nothing there. The business has overtaken his family, and and then of course he goes to his mother and he says, can you lose your family? And his mother's like, no, you can't. And he says, well, times are changing. So he's obviously conscious of that, but he's kind of accepted it at the same time, which I feel like that is the implication. And and would Vito ever accept that? Given what we've seen from him, would Vito ever be like, yeah, I guess I have to lose my family, or I guess that's what's happening? If it doesn't feel like from what we see of Vito, he'd ever do that, would he?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's a family guy.
He is a family guy. So there you go. You can see the contrast there, right?
Yeah, that is actually a moment of stark contrast.
So yeah, you can see how the stories do intertwine in a clever way.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what, Luke? So thank you for bringing that to my attention, because I asked you. I said, Luke, are there any interesting moments where there's an interesting contrast and interplay? And you have you've truffled out an example.
Yes, there we go. So let's move on now to Fredo.
Fredo tells Michael that he did not realize that Roth was planning an assassination. Michael disowns Fredo, but orders that he should not be harmed while their mother is alive. After that happens, eventually Enforcer Al Neri takes Fredo fishing and shoots him as Michael watches from the compound.
Yes. So, of course, Fredo, he goes on that iconic rant, doesn't he?
He's like, hey, I wanted to be a big shot guy.
Yeah, I'm smart. I'm not dumb like everyone says. I want respect. And that right there, is the motivation for so many,
Yeah, that's like how every single mob guy dies.
Yeah, but it's just like so well enunciated. It's like the id of somebody who's underappreciated.
Yeah,
it's coming out to and him saying that I want respect. It's like he's just so humiliated in all aspects of his life. Like his kid brother is running the show, and he's just this dumb sidekick who.
Yeah. Also, he's on like a bouncy little chair.
Yeah,
he's just like his really exaggerated cartoony movements.
Yeah, and again, it's just such good filmmaking. It's just such good character development. It's just it's so good. And again, the Fredo thing is famous, I think, because of this. And yeah, I talked, I think last time when we did the Godfather Part 1 or the first Godfather, we talked about Succession, didn't we?
Yes.
The interfamily dynamics there, which are inherently interesting, and yeah, of course, the Godfather didn't create this. The brothers warring in a powerful family, one brother trying to get the leg up on another. But Succession, of course, one of the reasons why it was so successful is because that dynamic happened all the time. The siblings trying to fuck each other over to please their father, and of course, it's not interfamily dynamics necessarily. But again, when the other greatest TV shows of all time, Game of Thrones, at least.
I thought you were going to say Arrested Development, because they're always trying to screw each other over there.
Yes,
to,
they are. Yes, they are. And, it's honestly part of the reason why it is a good comedy, because you can create these situations over and over again where the siblings are warring against each other. But again, Succession is kind of a comedy as well. But yeah, Game of Thrones, of course, is,
Yes.
Yeah, you
They're
have...
scheming.
Yeah, you have scheming, and here you have scheming between family members, which is so dramatic. But yeah, it's you can understand it so well. You can understand completely why Fredo was pissed off, and who wouldn't be in his situation,
Yeah.
Do we think that Fredo did know that Michael was going to get assassinated?
That's an interesting question. I feel like maybe Fredo's right. Maybe he's not as dumb as he lets on. But then I don't know. Like if that were the case,
Well,
I
why
feel
were
like
the drapes left open?
Yeah, I guess you're right.
Yeah,
the drapes were left open. I was gonna say like the fact that he's like very angry makes me feel like there must be a degree of sincerity. But maybe he is faking it completely.
Yeah.
I would be perfectly willing to accept as headcanon that he did know about it.
Yes, and of course, Michael eventually has him killed, which, again, the business over family, this is literally the most obvious thing. We talked about that theme. You could forgive him, because he is your brother, and,
Yeah. And also, like, because the daughter, I was, like, kind of remembering, I was like, oh, yeah.
Yes.
The whole thing with the...
I'm just going to talk about Connie, but yeah.
Yeah, and, like, her whole thing, because I like, forgot about this, and, like, the big thing in the previous film is that she had, like, a husband. I hope I'm not misremembering this.
No, Carlo,
and
yeah.
Michael has her killed. Sorry, Michael has him killed,
Yes.
and she's really annoyed about that, right?
Yes.
So it's like she's always like every single time she like doesn't want someone to die, they get killed. So she should probably just stop trying.
Yeah, and well, that's the thing. Connie says, "I've eventually forgiven you. Please don't kill Fredo. Please don't do it." And well, please at least treat him like a brother. So of course, the implication is don't kill him. And
yes.
And then he does it anyway. Connie is ignored once again. His own family once again. He just doesn't give a shit about her. It's just business for him. Okay, it doesn't matter that you're my brother. It doesn't matter, that my son seemingly has a good relationship with you, that he likes hanging out with you. They go fishing together. And be like, okay, I'd keep him around at least for that because my son likes him. Nope, still not good enough. Still gonna kill you because of what you did. It's just, again, businesses takes precedent of family in a way which is quite obvious here. So what happens, because now we're getting into the Senate committee here.
Yes, so a Senate committee on organised crime investigates the Corleone family. Pentangeli agrees to testify against Michael and is placed under witness protection. Michael attends the committee hearing with Hagen and Pentangeli's brother from Sicily. Pentangeli, after seeing them, retracts his statement implicating Michael in organised crime, and the hearing dissolves in an uproar. So he does a little, I believe it's called a power move here, a power play.
Yes, and again, I think this is in the movie because, again, the contrast between Pentangeli, who, of course, was close to his father, and the way he views the world, and Michael as well, because obviously
his family.
Michael is threatening, his brother, so his family, and he's like, no, you know what, I could, because he's going to go to jail, obviously. Which he does. He ends up in jail. He could have sacrificed his brother to, and seen Michael go down. And of course he thinks Michael killed him, or tried to kill him. And Michael is also threatening his brother as well. So he is pissed off with Michael and, is like, well, no, I still value my brother's life over, my freedom. We'll get onto what he does at the end, but let's get back to Kay now.
Yeah, so Kay tells Michael that she had an abortion. Michael strikes her in rage and banishes her alone. That happens right before the flashback to 1922, where Vito and his family travel to Sicily to start an olive oil importing business. He visits an elderly Don Ciccio. He obtains Ciccio's blessing for their business, then reveals his identity and slices Ciccio's stomach. So I guess there's a contrast here in that Vito, he avenges his father's death, while Michael causes his son's death by not fighting hard enough to stop Roe v. Wade.
Yes.
He calls himself a Catholic.
Yeah, didn't donate to any senators who opposed it. Yeah, and of course, I like how Vito does it with a knife because that's what his mother did. Or that's what his mother tried to do.
Yes.
Yeah, which I like. Again, it's like poetry. It rhymes. No, again, there's a symbolic reason why that character did that. Michael, again, he has been literally killing his family and has now lost his family, of course. And the contrast again is to Vito, who, saw his own family being killed when he was a kid. And is, avenging his family. Kay also gets a door slammed in her face, just like the last movie, if you remember.
What do you mean, like right at the end?
Yeah. Which I like. Again, it's like poetry, it rhymes. No, I've got to stop saying that. But yeah, well, of course, yeah, Michael is in the process of committing his revenge, isn't he?
Yeah, so Michael wraps up loose ends. Roth returns to the United States after being refused entry to Israel. Good old Israel.
Good old Israel.
Yeah, never can never go wrong with Israel. Always the good guys. Corleone capo Rocco Lamponi assassinates him at the airport and is shot dead trying to escape. Yeah, these hitmen. They're really like they don't have a great lifespan. They're really they're basically kamikazes at this point.
Yeah, so Rocco might have been part of the original assassination attempt as well, and Michael will have known about it. And in order to like protect his family, Rocco's like, right, I'm going to basically sacrifice myself. That's why he's saying, no, it's not impossible. I can do it.
Yeah.
Because he's like, yeah, I'm going to die, so I might as well do this. So Michael is like satisfied with me. That's a possible reading of the situation. But yeah, he also, of course, gets rid of Tom Hagen at the same time. Michael just pushes him out. You know, the killing of Roth, it mirrors the killing of Lee Harvey Oswald as well.
Yeah, I was thinking that. Yeah, that is really funny.
Yeah, which the mob might have done. Yeah.
JFK already got gangbanged.
Okay. Yeah. What happens, of course, with Pentangeli?
Yes, so Hagen visits Pentangeli and they discuss how failed conspirators against the Roman Emperor could commit suicide to save their families. Pentangeli is later found dead in his bathtub. Yeah, I actually really like the whole like Rome thing, and of course, Roman Empire fell. Which does they even have like a line about that in this movie?
Yeah, Hagen says that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So yeah, I like that, and I like the. Well, I guess you could say it's subtlety. It's just, I mean, it's the thing that I guess the mobsters like to do, where they say things and they leave things unsaid, but everyone knows what's been said.
Yeah, well, this movie does that a lot. So
yes,
yeah, again, the language of subtlety. But yeah, and he's found dead in his bathtub because he's like, I'll save my family by committing suicide. So yeah, he again puts his family over his own, I guess, personal, his life. Of course, we have a flashback. I don't know if it's a flashback or it could be part of Vito's life, but it's not really because Vito isn't in the scene. But yeah, a time in 1941 to end up the movie.
Yeah. So Michael, this is how they end it. It's really fun. Michael recalls Vito's 50th birthday party on December 7th, 1941. I wonder what happened that day. While that family waits for Vito, Michael announces that he has dropped out of... I wonder what happened that day. While the family waits for Vito, Michael announces that he has dropped out of college and joined the Marines. When Vito arrives, Michael sits alone at a table, while the others welcome him in surprise. The film concludes with Michael sitting pensively alone by the lake. So yeah. He's with his family. He makes this... I suppose it's not that decision he makes. Going to war was fine. But, shows him with his family and then not with his family.
Well, yeah, I guess it's like, why has Michael... ended up this way? Well, right from the beginning, he did his own thing. He went off to fight for the Marines, like against the wishes of his family. He kind of rebelled in that sense, somewhat. And he did everything, for himself. Not thinking of the family. And I think you can see that with Sonny is of course mad at him, and Tom Hagen's like, we had plans for you, and he's like, no, fuck you, I don't care about your plans. I want, it's my life. So he has this attitude of his individuality is the most important thing, and then you can see, not caring about his family. Well, this is how he ends up alone, and he went on this revenge quest, and he lost everything but his power, because that's all he cared about. And I guess you can say, it's like this, it's the downfall of Michael Corleone somewhat, because he's still obviously the dawn of the mafia, or this mafia crime family at the end. But yeah, I feel like this kind of storyline has become cliche, because that's what happened in Goodfellas, of course, and it's what happened in The Irishman, what happened in Casino as well. Just Martin Scorsese movies, basically. Like the downfall of the mafia. Actually, the mafia, it's not so glamorous.
Yes.
And, you could, even if you're the head of this powerful crime family, you could end up alone, because you could get infected with this idea that business takes precedent over everything, even your own family. And yeah, that's what happened.
All I want is a mafia movie that's just like, hey, being in a mafia, sometimes it's just awesome and it's fine. Is that too much to ask for?
That's what the first movie kind of did, though. I know, Michael has his father, and of course Sonny, they both die. But the first movie kind of showed, look how cool it is to be this mafia boss. Look at his rise to power. Again, it leaves you lonely, and yeah. So I guess that's Coppola. As many Italian Americans, they don't approve of the mafia. They make cool movies about the mafia, but then have to either end the movie or do a sequel saying, wait, the Mafia isn't actually as cool as you think. It actually destroys people and you shouldn't like it. But yeah, let's conclude. Michael, you go first.
Yes, so this movie, it is, well, you could say it's about family, and that's what makes it so powerful. And I think it does a good job at being about that, and I do like the way it builds that up, and you can tell that's what it's about. Lovely. I think
What are you gonna
the
give it?
the plot is such that like I don't want to come back to this movie again and again. I'm gonna give this film a high 7, and I actually just checked, and I actually gave the original Godfather a low 8, which would completely make sense to me saying I like this film slightly less. So
Okay.
there we go. Because there definitely are like thematic films that I like more than this. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I am. So I gave the first one a 9. I'm going to give this one an 8.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, which is, I think, fair. It's like just not as good as the first one, but it's still, a very good movie. And yeah, of course, I think the themes are good, but they're just not as interesting as the first one. And yeah, it's just like maybe if the first one didn't exist, you'd give this one an 8.5. I don't know how that'd work, but yeah.
I could see that. Like this film loses points for a lack of originality.
Or yeah, just lack of not being as good as the first one. It's so great, but there is something that
having a direct contrast can often.
It hurts it perhaps, but yeah. What are we doing next time, Michael? Because it's 2025 next time.
God, yeah, I can't even remember. Just tell me.
I'll tell you. So we're doing the 4 movies that were nominated for Best Original Screenplay at the 2024 Oscars. So yeah, those movies, I'll just say them because I believe I have them right now, are Anatomy of a Fall, Maestro, Past Lives, and The Holdovers.
Oh, good.
So yes, and
this is going to be one guaranteed great movie.
And of course, yes, because we have already reviewed Barbie, which was an original screenplay in that category. It was the 5th one, but we've already done that. So yeah, we're going to do the other 4. So join us for that in a couple of weeks' time.
All right. Who have you been, Luke?
I've been Luke. Thanks for listening to our review of The Godfather Part 2, and bye.
Bye.